A young girl sleeps quietly on her bed while the MC sits nearby in a chair, lost in thought. He recalls the rumors people often whisper about her, saying that Himuro Fuyuka is as cold as ice. The scene shifts to Asahi, seated alone at his desk. Deep in thought, one of his classmates approaches and starts talking, trying to remind him about something they discussed earlier. Asahi doesn't seem interested and gives only brief replies. The friend continues, mentioning that last Friday, Himuro had a fever and went home early, but she seems fine now since she's back at school as usual. Asahi appears annoyed and tells him to stop talking. He thinks that someone like her, often called the Ice Queen, doesn't seem like the kind of person who would catch a cold. Rising from his seat, he decides to leave. His classmate reacts in surprise, panicking about their upcoming tests, and calls out to him in desperation. Asahi tells him to stop his nonsense and walks away. The nickname Ice Queen belongs to Himuro Fuyuka, one of Asahi's classmates. She is admired for her looks, her athletic and artistic talents, and her flawless academic record. Within the school, she has gained a reputation for being almost perfect, standing far above everyone else in popularity. There is a story that she once told another student not to concern themselves with her, speaking without hesitation or warmth. Since the day she entered the school, she has always kept her distance, avoiding close contact with anyone who tried to approach her. Over time, everyone began calling her by the name that suited her best, the Ice Queen. Later, Asahi and his friend arrive at Asahi's house. While looking around, the classmate recalls that during his last visit, he noticed a nameplate on the neighbor's door that read Himuro. He wonders aloud if it could be the same Himuro from their class. Asahi ignores the question and tells him to focus on studying. The classmate quickly agrees, but Asahi finds himself unable to concentrate. For the past few days, his thoughts have been wandering at random moments, always returning to one person. Himuro Fuyuka, known by everyone as the Ice Queen. The reason for this began 3 days earlier, on Friday. That evening, Asahi had been thinking about what to make for dinner. When he went out to buy groceries, he noticed a familiar figure on his way back. That it was the girl everyone talked about, the Ice Queen. He remembered hearing that she had left school early that day because of a fever. Realizing she was also his neighbor, he saw that she looked pale and weak, as though she might collapse. Concerned, he asked if she was all right. She insisted she was fine and told him not to worry. Even though she clearly didn't look well, he decided not to press her further. The next moment, she suddenly lost her balance and fell to the ground. Startled, he rushed to help her, calling out repeatedly. When she responded faintly, saying she could hear him, she pulled her hand away and once again murmured that she was feeling better. That it struck Asahi that the Ice Queen truly wanted nothing to do with anyone. If she wished to stay distant, forcing concern on her would only trouble her. But just as he decided to step back, she collapsed completely. Losing all strength, that he quickly moved forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Whispering her name, he tried to see if she could hear him. Realizing her house was empty and he couldn't leave her outside in that state, he carried her carefully to his own home. With no other option, that was how she ended up resting there. As she slept, she murmured faintly, half-conscious, making small sounds as if lost in a dream. Watching her, Asahi felt uncertain, sensing that he was witnessing something he probably shouldn't. Looking at the girl everyone called the Ice Queen, he quietly turned away and began preparing dinner. After some time, Himuro stirred awake and looked at him. She reminded him that she had told him not to concern himself with her. He replied that he couldn't simply ignore someone who had collapsed right in front of him. Hearing that, she quietly acknowledged that he had saved her, and he responded with a simple word of courtesy that he offered her a drink and told her to rest a little longer, but she insisted that she felt good. Seeing how unsteady she still was, he pointed it out, but she said she shouldn't trouble him any further. When she tried to stand, her legs gave way, and she fell to the floor. Asahi caught her before she could hit the ground. Embarrassed, she apologized and asked him to let go. Concerned, he checked to make sure she wasn't hurt, and waited until she could stand properly again, that he then asked if she was hungry. She said she would leave soon, but he told her to lie down and rest. After preparing a meal, he served it to her, warning her that it was hot and to be careful that it was a bowl of egg rice porridge. Himuro studied the food quietly. Asahi noticed her expression and asked what was wrong. She asked if he had made it himself. When he wondered if she disliked it, she quickly shook her head and said that wasn't what she meant, then thanked him for the meal. When he asked how it tasted, she hesitated, lost in thought. Assuming it must taste bad, he looked a bit uneasy, but she shook her head again and explained that it simply felt strangely nostalgic. Unsure what she meant, he remained silent and left the room quietly, not knowing how else to respond. Later, he thought that leaving earlier had probably been the right choice. She apologized to him for showing something unpleasant. He replied that he hadn't seen anything, and she responded that it would be better if it stayed that way. After finishing her meal, she thanked him again, saying it was very delicious. When she tried to take her dish to the kitchen, Asahi offered to do it himself, but Himuro refused, insisting it was fine. He asked when her parents would be home. She explained that they wouldn't be coming back, that she always lived alone. Surprised, he inquired if she really stayed by herself, and she quietly confirmed that she did. Asahi told her they were the same, since he also lived alone. When Himuro asked how he managed to live by himself in such a large place, he replied that the same could be asked of her. She said that she had her own circumstances, and he answered that he did too. He explained that his parents' restaurant had become busy around the time they moved to this area, so until things settled down, he would be living on his own. She listened and remarked that his parents must trust him a lot, that he agreed softly, saying that might be true. After that, Himuro said nothing more. When he left the room, she seemed to fall asleep again, that he checked on her a few times throughout the evening, and found her resting peacefully each time that as the night grew late, he heard a faint sound, and realized she had woken up. A little while later, he knocked on her door, and told her he was coming in. When he asked what was wrong, she explained that her hair ornament had come loose earlier, and she had placed it somewhere nearby. He looked around, found it, and pointed it out to her. Relieved, she thanked him softly. Asahi remarked that it seemed to be something important, and she replied that it was her most precious treasure. Before leaving, she thanked him again for everything he had done for her during her stay. He told her not to worry, and reminded her to rest properly after taking a bath, drink enough water, and take some cold medicine. After that, she quietly left. Later that night, Asahi lay on his bed, thinking about how tired he felt. The bed still held a faint warmth and a light, sweet scent left behind from her stay. That night, he chose to sleep on the couch in the living room instead. 3 days passed without them speaking again. Himuro returned to her usual self, distant and calm as ever. The Ice Queen everyone knew. One night, Asahi heard the doorbell ring and wondered who could be visiting at such an hour. When he opened the door, he was startled to see her standing there. She hands him an envelope, which he takes and looks inside, finding money. Surprised, he refuses to accept, explaining that he did not do enough to deserve such payment. Himuro insists that it would be unfair not to repay him for his time, effort, and the things he provided when she was unwell. Still, he declines, saying that he helped her out of goodwill. Himuro hesitates, unsure of what to say next. Asahi then suggests another way for her to repay him, by helping him study instead. She seems uncertain and asks if that is really enough, but he assures her that it is. He recalls Himuro being ranked first in both the midterm and final exams during the previous semester. She agrees to his proposal, and with a calm expression, immediately enters his home to help him. Asahi, slightly taken aback, did not expect her to start right away, that he thought they would decide on another time and place. As she enters his room without hesitation, he finds himself surprised by her ease. He remembers how others often describe her as distant and reserved, known by the nickname Ice Queen, and wonders where that image has gone. They start studying together, and Asahi praises her teaching, which she modestly downplays. He is impressed by her patience and clear explanations. She guides him through each question and softly praises him when he gets them right. Within an hour, even the problems that once puzzled him are solved and marked with red circles. Himuro then expresses concern, saying that helping him study does not seem enough to repay him for taking care of her when she was ill. Asahi assures her that it is more than enough. Before he can continue, he notices the rice cooker finishing and excuses himself to check on it. He opens the lid, and a familiar sound fills the room. Turning back, he mentions that he still has some curry left and asks if she would like some. Himuro politely declines, but he insists on treating her, saying it is the least he can do since she has helped him make such progress in his studies. She responds quietly, still refusing but without argument. Soon, they sit at the table and begin eating together. Himuro comments that the food tastes good, and Asahi thanks her. She remarks that he is quite good at cooking, addressing him by his last name. Hearing her say it so casually makes him pause for a moment. Realizing that it is the first time someone has called him that in such a natural way that he admits that his cooking skills likely come from his parents. His father works as a chef, and his mother is a pâtissier. Although he feels awkward taking pride in simple dishes like rice porridge and curry, he knows their influence has shaped his abilities. Himuro asks if he plans to pursue a culinary career like his parents, but Asahi responds that he has considered other options. He explains that while he once admired his parents and was encouraged by them, his interests have since changed. When she asks how his parents responded, he says they seemed slightly disappointed, but still told him to follow what he truly wants. Himuro remarks that his family seems warm, and Asahi agrees, feeling thankful for them. He acknowledges that it is because of his parents that he can cook dishes like the ones they are eating now. He keeps studying while Himuro finishes her meal and thanks him that he tells her to leave the dishes, but she starts washing them instead. When he questions her, she insists on cleaning them herself, unable to leave them dirty. Seeing her determination, Asahi lets her continue that he realizes that once Himuro decides on something, she never changes her mind. Though they have not spent much time together, he already understands this about her. Curious, he asks if she cooks for herself. After a brief exchange, she tells him to keep studying while she finishes the dishes. Asahi tells Himuro that she should make sure to eat proper meals. He explains that whether she cooks or not is not important, but neglecting her health will only make things worse. She asks what he means, and he replies that it is just his last bit of concern. In his thoughts, he recalls taking care of her when she was sick, and how she returned today to repay that kindness. He assumes that after this, their brief connection will likely come to an end, so he decides to say what is on his mind, that he tells her that if she collapses again, it will trouble him, so she should remember to eat properly. Himuro agrees and says she will keep it in mind. Then she points out that he can actually smile normally, which makes him pause. When she asks what he thinks she is, he looks at her, silently observing. In his mind, he notes that the fleeting image of the so-called Ice Queen smiling remains fixed in his thoughts. He knows that this moment marks the natural end of their time together, yet he cannot help but feel it is a little unfortunate that a week later, Asahi's classmate expresses surprise at his improved grades, asking if he has always been this smart. Asahi teases him back. Impressed by his 30th rank out of 300, the classmate asks his study secret, and Asahi gives a vague reply. Chiaki jokes about learning his secret to high scores, but Asahi reminds him that he barely passed last time. When Chiaki keeps talking, Asahi advises him to study, instead of spending all his time with his girlfriend. Chiaki laughs, saying Asahi will understand once he gets 1-2. Chiaki's girlfriend joins them, asking about their test results and admitting she did poorly. He jokes about Operation Make Asahi Hot, teasing his friend. She reacts excitedly, while Asahi looks confused. Chiaki explains that they joked Asahi would stand out more if he cut his hair and smiled, which Asahi denies. Hina becomes more animated and asks if Asahi has finally found someone he likes. He quickly tells her to calm down, and she agrees, suggesting that they all go eat at a diner instead. Chiaki enthusiastically supports the idea, and Asahi, half amused, tells them to go ahead before realizing he is also invited. At the restaurant, he sits across from his friends while they act affectionately toward each other. He quietly eats his meal, watching their playful behavior without saying much. After leaving the restaurant, he walks home, lost in thought about the past week. Even though he and Himuro have seen each other a few times, they have not spoken. He intended to keep it that way, but something about it still lingers in his mind that on his way home, he passes through a store and suddenly notices Himuro. She seems to be looking for something and appears slightly troubled. When he notices, he asks what she's looking for. She is caught off guard by the question, wondering why he is there. Asahi notices Himuro staring at a bottle and reminds her that minors are not allowed to buy alcohol. She explains that she was only looking for cooking wine, but it seems to be sold out. Asahi informs her that the cooking wine is placed in the condiment section and leads her there. She quietly thanks him. He glances at the items in her basket and realizes that she plans to make curry. She appears surprised that he figured it out, while he simply notes that it was easy to deduce from her shopping choices. After paying for their items, they leave the store together. Asahi offers to help carry her bags, but she refuses. Despite her refusal, he steps forward, offering to take part of the load. She firmly reminds him not to concern himself, as she had said before. Her words carry the same distant tone as when they first spoke, and Asahi senses the same coldness. Once again, It feels as though everything between them until now had been a lie. He quietly accepts it and lets her be. The next day, Himuro seems to be searching for something. Unlike before, her expression is filled with distress. After school, Asahi asks Chiaki and Hinami about it. They mention rumors about Himuro's missing hair ornament, the one she always wears. Most students find it only slightly odd, but Asahi remembers her saying that the ornament is her most precious treasure. Though she had told him not to worry, Asahi cannot ignore it. He approaches her and offers to help search for the missing ornament, asking where she might have lost it, that he thinks that if he knows the general area, he might find it on his way back. Himuro explains that she lost the ornament on her way back from the supermarket the previous night. Asahi realizes it must have happened after they parted, and recalls that the wind was particularly strong that evening, that he considers that it might have been blown far away. Even if someone found it, few people would take it to the police. She expresses hope that they can still find it, but Asahi admits it may be difficult, that he visits the nearest police station to ask about the missing ornament. The officer checks the records and informs them that no such item has been reported. Just as he's about to leave, the officer mentions that a girl around their age had also come the day before, searching for a lost hair ornament. Outside the station, Asahi glances at Himuro, noticing her behavior. Even in situations like this, she chooses not to depend on others. He wonders if she deliberately avoids help, or if the thought of seeking it never even crosses her mind. Asahi spends the entire night searching for the lost ornament. By the next morning, he is exhausted and can barely keep his eyes open at school. Sitting at his desk, he struggles to stay awake when Chiaki approaches, commenting on his tired state, teasing that staying up late to play games is not good for him. Moments later, Hina appears, greeting them energetically. Chiaki joins in her excitement, while Asahi responds calmly. She looks at him, surprised by his lack of enthusiasm, and reminds him that she came all the way because he said he needed something. Asahi looks at both of them seriously, and mentions that he has a question he wants them to answer sincerely. He asks what they would do if they found a lost item. Hina, puzzled, asks what happened, calling it a strange question. Chiaki quickly assumes it must be part of a psychological test, and praises himself for figuring it out. Asahi replies that it is nothing like that, he is only asking an ordinary question. Chiaki thinks for a moment, and responds that it would depend on the type of item that was lost. Hina agrees. Chiaki explains that if it were something like a pair of gloves, he would probably ignore it, but if it were money, he would take it to the nearest police station. He also mentions that people sometimes find clothing on the ground. Hina joins in, wondering what the person who lost it would do afterward, and jokingly says that anyone losing their clothes must be a pervert. Chiaki laughs and remarks that it depends on the person. Asahi then asks what they would do if the lost item were important to its owner. Hina considers this, and states that if it were something valuable, like jewelry, she would take it to the police station. Chiaki agrees, adding that he might also place it somewhere visible, in case the owner returns. He concludes that aside from ignoring it, those are the only real options, though realistically, only the first two seem reasonable. After hearing their answers, Asahi quietly thinks that there really is no other choice but to keep searching. Hina then changes the topic and asks if, as children, they ever picked up random things from the ground. Chiaki recalls that he used to collect small items like BB pellets and pieces of chalk. Hina agrees, saying that it seems like something everyone does when they are little. Later during lunch, Asahi reflects on their words. He thinks about how children often find random objects beautiful and make them their treasures. The thought of a blue ribbon comes to his mind, and he begins to wonder if that might have happened in this case. When he returns home that evening, he meets Himuro near the entrance of their building. He greets her, and she wonders if he needs something. Asahi takes an item from his bag and holds it out. Surprised, she asks how he came to have it. He explains that a local child had found it by the roadside, liked it, and kept it. After hearing Hinami's story, he spent 3 days searching nearby parks, and eventually found the ribbon attached to a little girl's pouch. Once he explained the situation, the girl apologized and returned it. Himuro takes the ribbon with trembling hands, recognizing it immediately. She murmurs that it really is her mother's and expresses her relief. Placing it carefully back in her hair, she thanks Asahi for returning it. He tells her that it is clearly important to her and advises her not to lose it again. When she asks why he went to so much trouble, he shrugs it off, saying it was nothing, and that he just found it on his way back. Himuro looks at Asahi and calls his bluff, noting that he'd been searching for the ornament too. With a small smile, he admits that she'd already seen him wandering the streets early that morning before sunrise. Asahi is slightly surprised that she noticed. He says he thought no one would see him and adds that he did not have any particular reason for doing it. Perhaps it is just how he was raised, a habit he cannot easily ignore. Himuro then reminds him that he once said it would be the last time he interfered. Asahi repeats her words in question, and she tells him he tends to involve himself in others' matters far too often. After a short pause, she quietly adds that even so, she finds that to be a truly kind and admirable quality. Asahi turns to her, unsure if he heard correctly, and asks what she said. She quickly denies saying anything, that he responds softly that it must have been nothing at all. During the second semester, Asahi's thoughts drift to the upcoming cultural festival. The first-year students are planning an exhibit, though most seem more excited about the sports festival instead, that he recalls hearing that the winners will receive prizes, and that the MVP awards of each event are shrouded in a strange myth. Lost in thought, he's standing on the ground, unaware of his surroundings. Suddenly, the ball strikes his face, knocking him to the ground. The other players rush over to check on him. After a moment, he sits up, quietly covers his face with his hand, and heads to the infirmary alone. He enters, holding a tissue to his nose. Inside, he finds Himuro already there, and stops in surprise. When he wonders why she's there, she simply replies that she's injured, as if it should have been obvious. Himuro sits nearby, her arm bandaged from a strain, that he points out how often she's been getting into trouble lately, and she agrees. When he inquires about the nurse, she mentions that she left to take a call and hasn't returned. Asahi explains that his nosebleed came from a strong soccer shot that hit him directly. Himuro mentions that the gauze is in the bottom right drawer. He looks a bit surprised that she knows, and she explains that she serves as the class health representative. When he wonders if she volunteered, she admits she lost a game of rock, paper, scissors and ended up with the job, regretting her choice. Then, glancing at him, she comments that his face looks rather silly, noting that anyone would appear strange while dealing with a nosebleed. Asahi notices that Himuro has become more approachable lately. She even greets him whenever they pass each other at the apartment building, and conversations like this have started happening from time to time that he asks if her injury will recover before the sports festival. She replies that she has been told to rest for at least a week. He points out that it's a tight schedule, and she hopes to participate if possible. When he mentions that he didn't expect her to be interested in such events, she explains that she enjoys playing basketball. Hearing this, Asahi wonders if she's good at sports too, then tells her he hopes she recovers soon. A few days later, rain falls heavily as Asahi pauses at his door, unsure whether to go out. With a short-term sale happening, he decides he can't miss it. Though his parents support him financially, he prefers to be careful with his spending and avoid waste. At the building entrance, he spots Himuro waiting and thinks about how often they've been running into each other lately. She greets him, and he reminds himself it's natural since they live in the same place. He asks about her arm, wondering if it will recover before the event. She answers that she isn't sure. Asahi offers her a spot under his umbrella, noting that the rain might ease soon and that his shopping won't take long. To his surprise, she accepts without hesitation. Her straightforwardness catches him off guard, as she remarks that if she'd refused, he probably would have gone to call a taxi anyway. When he asks how she perceives him, she answers that he comes across as a somewhat meddlesome neighbor. They walk together under the same umbrella. Asahi notices the ready-made food in her bag and comments on it. She asks if there's an issue, and he replies that there isn't. She explains that she'd prefer to cook properly, but with her dominant hand injured, she has little choice. He nods, understanding her situation. After a pause, he offers to prepare a meal for her, which makes her stop in surprise. He quickly clarifies that even pre-packaged food requires using her hand for small tasks, so he could make extra portions while cooking for himself. He adds that it might help her recover faster before the sports festival. She hesitates before remarking that he tends to involve himself in other people's matters quite easily. He admits that might be true. She then says that, in that case, she'll at least pay for the ingredients. They return to Asahi's apartment, where he prepares dinner for both of them and sets it neatly on the table. When Himuro sees the meal, she looks surprised and impressed. Asahi tells her to start eating before it gets cold, and she thanks him politely before taking her first bite. After tasting it, she remarks that the food is very good, and he replies that he's glad she likes it. As she continues eating, Asahi quietly watches her, thinking that even something as simple as drinking soup looks graceful. She catches his gaze and questions him, and he apologizes, saying she just seemed to be enjoying the meal, that he reflects that he only invited her over because of his tendency to interfere in others' matters. He knows he has no hidden intentions, yet admits she might be right. He does find himself looking at her often. Our lad then wonders why she's still there, and she explains that she can't just eat and leave immediately. He tells her not to worry, reminding her that since she's paying for the ingredients, they're even. She agrees and adds that if she weren't injured, she would have helped with the dishes too. Asahi realizes she plans to stay until he finishes cleaning up. While Asahi washes the dishes, Himuro picks up a book to read. When he asks about it, she says it's a romance novel, that he's surprised that she'd read that genre, and realizes he might have spoken too freely. Continuing to clean, he listens as she replies that she doesn't mind his remark and that he needn't feel embarrassed. She knows what others call her, she adds, but she's that way by choice. Asahi recalls how the nickname Ice Queen came to describe her, someone distant and self-contained. When she suddenly loses her balance, she quickly insists she's fine. He asks what she means and wonders aloud how he fits into what she said, that he points out that she usually avoids getting involved with others. She answers that she never intended to get involved with him either, but he was the one who approached her first. He admits that he acted on his own and apologizes, thinking he must have been bothersome. She shakes her head and claims she doesn't see him that way. Instead, she feels grateful to him for always being considerate and looking out for her. The day of the sports festival is near. Chiaki excitedly tells Asahi how much he's been looking forward to it, especially because he'll get to eat Hinami's homemade lunch. Asahi responds casually, but suddenly feels Hinami's glare. She turns to Chichan and demands to know if he's been eating Asahi's cooking lately. Embarrassed, he admits it, saying that now it will be compared. Asahi wonders aloud what that has to do with him. He tries to calm Hina, saying there's no reason to be so tense. When he opens his lunchbox, Chiaki looks at it and comments that the beef stew Asahi made before was delicious. Hinami grows irritated at that, while Chiaki continues recording with his phone. Hinami then turns to Asahi in frustration, calling him the son of a chef and a pâtissier. Asahi tries to ease the situation. As Hinami tries Asahi's lunch, she's clearly impressed by the taste but downplays it, remarking casually that it's just ordinary. Asahi simply agrees. She then leans toward Chiaki and murmurs that she'll do her best to make one herself next time. Chiaki lights up, declaring that while Asahi's cooking is great, Hinami's food will always be his favorite. Watching them, Asahi thinks they should probably have their moment somewhere else. Hinami turns to him and mentions wanting to try his beef stew someday. He refuses with a teasing grin, saying that if they came over, they'd only end up flirting again. Hinami laughs, adding that if she wins the MVP award, she'll hand it to him as thanks, that he shakes his head, insisting he's not interested. She reminds him of the rumor surrounding the prize, a brooch with 3 roses said to grant love if given to someone special. He admits he knows about it but still isn't tempted. She urges him to accept it anyway, and Asahi remarks that the basketball match is expected to be fierce. He turns to Hinami, asking if she's confident about winning, and she shrugs, saying things will work out somehow. Hina wanted to compete against Himuro, though her injury prevented it, that he wonders if she could have matched someone like Hinami, who once played at the national level. Hinami corrects him with a smirk, reminding him she's a former national player. Asahi believes that Himuro might still have a shot at the MVP title, that he then realizes he never actually agreed to let Hinami visit his place, and she reacts with a playful smile, clearly expecting him to give in. The day before the festival, Himuro comes to Asahi's house for dinner. As the food cooks, she asks him how much longer it will take, and he tells her it will be ready soon. She mentions that she wants to make a bento, but thinks the meat stew is not suitable since it takes time and effort to prepare. This confuses Asahi, and she repeats that she wants to learn how to make bento. Surprised, Asahi wonders if she really wants to do that, especially with her injured hand, that he worries even more, thinking that even if she were completely fine, her cooking might still be risky. Himuro insists that her injury is almost healed, but then questions what he means by saying that even in perfect condition, it's concerning. She adds that it's troublesome for her, as well as the cafeteria will be closed during the sports tournament. She has no other option. Asahi silently worries about her. He knows she tends to push herself and thinks about how she might hurt her hand again while cooking. Lost in thought, he decides that he should take care of things for her. He tells her that he will handle it instead, wanting to make sure she doesn't strain herself. Himuro agrees and leaves everything to him. A few days later, the sports festival begins. Asahi and Chiaki watch the match together. Their class loses in the first round, leaving both of them disappointed. They not only face defeat, but also fail to show their full potential. The opposing team includes the ace player from the football club, making them strong contenders for the championship. Chiaki jokingly blames Asahi, saying that if he had blocked the decisive shot with his face, they might have won. Asahi responds that getting hit like that would have caused more than just a minor injury. After a pause, Chiaki looks at him closely and asks if something is wrong. Asahi acts as if he doesn't understand, but Chiaki insists that he seems distracted, mentioning that he has noticed it during the game and even recently. Asahi brushes it off, telling him that he must be mistaken. Yet deep down, he realizes that Chiaki is more perceptive than he appears. In his mind, Asahi recalls the memory from that morning that he gave Himuro her lunchbox as promised. He told her he was glad she had recovered in time, and she replied that it was thanks to him. He modestly remarked that he'd only made her a few meals, nothing more. Before leaving, he wished her luck in basketball and mentioned he'd be cheering for her. Remembering that Kamaji played defense in football, she looked a little surprised, then smiled and said she'd cheer for him too. Now thinking back, Asahi realizes it wasn't anything remarkable, that he had only given her food as he promised, yet he can't focus at all today. Himuro's smile stays vividly in his mind, distracting him during the match. He knows Chiaki is sharper than he seems, so he tries to keep his thoughts hidden, determined not to let anyone notice what's on his mind. Asahi is lost in thought when Hina arrives announcing that it is lunchtime and suggesting they eat together. Chiaki asks if she really prepared the meal herself, and Hina proudly replies that she woke up early to make it. When his boo friend tastes the food, he is impressed by how good it is and compares it to something served at a restaurant. Hina laughs, taking his words as flattery. Watching them, Asahi thinks that Hinami seems to have helped her. Then Hina suddenly suggests that Chef Asahi should taste the food as well. Chiaki agrees, saying that Asahi, being good at cooking, would appreciate it. Asahi tells them not to call him that, but takes a bite anyway. After tasting it, Asahi admits it's good. Hinami cheers, claiming she's earned the chef's approval, while Chiaki teases that Asahi actually praised someone's cooking. Asahi responds calmly that it's nothing worth fussing over. Gazing out the window, his thoughts shift to whether Himuro might be eating at that moment. Nearby, Hinami comments that his lunch looks refined, and Chiaki jokes, asking if he's trying to compete. Asahi quietly denies it. Chiaki mentions he'll be cheering for Hinami during the afternoon events, and Asahi hesitates, uncertain about joining. Hinami brightly invites him to watch as well. Grinning, she declares she'll win the brooch for him. Asahi insists he doesn't need it, but she ignores his refusal, promising to give it to him anyway. On the basketball court, Chiaki cheers loudly for Hina, encouraging her to keep going and calling for Asahi to join in. He adds his voice, though more quietly. Chiaki keeps shouting, urging Hina to defend until the final seconds. On the court, Himuro stands in front of Hina, and Asahi watches in amazement, thinking about how skilled she is. Himuro scores another three-pointer, leaving him wondering how many she has made so far. The commentary announces that there are 10 minutes remaining, predicting a win for Class 2, but also mentioning that Class 3 still has a chance, as long as Himuro keeps scoring. After a while, Chiaki heads off to talk to Hinami, while Asahi decides to grab something from the vending machine. He assumes the ones inside the gym will be crowded, so he heads to the back of the building instead. There, he unexpectedly runs into Himuro, realizing that she seems to have had the same idea, that he notices she isn't wearing her usual hair ornaments and mentions it. She explains that she took them off during the game, then thanks him for the meal he made earlier. He gives a polite nod in response. She says that it was delicious, especially the tamagoyaki, which had a taste she liked. When she asks if something is wrong, he quietly replies that nothing is. Asahi stands facing the vending machine, lost in thought that he feels uneasy, realizing that he can't act naturally around Himuro. The memory of her smile from that morning returns to his mind, making his heartbeat quicken in a way he doesn't understand. Turning toward her, he tells her that she played well in basketball. She looks surprised and asks if he watched the game. He replies that their class is expected to win the tournament. As she steps closer to the vending machine and inserts a coin, she announces she will do her best, though it will be difficult. Asahi responds that he believes she can win without much trouble if she keeps making shots like before. Himuro shakes her head, saying it's not that easy, explaining that the player assigned to guard her is strong and that their opponents have several experienced members from the basketball team. Asahi looks at her and thinks to himself that if Hinami wins, she will receive a brooch said to grant success in love. The thought makes him uneasy, but his mind quickly shifts to something else. He then asks Himuro what her favorite food is. She answers that it's omurice. He tells her that if she wins, he will cook omurice for her as a reward and promises to use the best ingredients. He asks if that would motivate her. She agrees without hesitation, surprised. He asks again if she's satisfied with only that, and she simply answers yes. Setting her drink down, she ties her hair back and declares it a promise before walking away with quiet determination. Himuro is once again at Asahi's house for dinner, that he serves her the omurice he promised. She begins eating quietly, clearly enjoying the taste. Asahi recalls the basketball match. Himuro had played exceptionally well and led the team to victory. Chiaki had been down because Hinami's team lost, and Asahi remembers how surprised he was that their side managed to turn things around. He also thinks of Hinami's words before the game, her determined promise to win and give him the brooch no matter what. Remembering that, he feels slightly guilty about her loss. Lost in thought, Asahi is brought back when Himuro reminds him to eat before the food gets cold. He starts eating and notices she has already finished half her portion, eating faster than usual. Since they've often shared meals lately, he immediately senses the difference. Taking a bite himself, he agrees that it tastes good. As they continue eating, the atmosphere feels both comfortable and quiet. While finishing dinner, Asahi reflects that this shared routine between them might soon come to an end, and the thought leaves him a little sad. When they are done, he carries the dishes to the sink and begins washing them in silence. Afterward, Asahi sits at his desk to study. He mentions that since the sports tournament is nearly over, the school term will soon end as well, so he wants to get an early start. Himuro comes closer, looking over his notebook, and points out a few errors in his worksheet. She explains that the mistakes are due to using the wrong formula and that some problems require a different solving method. Asahi glances toward her, thinking about how she always understands things quickly. Her explanations are clearer than their teachers, and learning from her feels easier. That he remembers how she helped him study before the exams, and his grades improved because of it. Himuro modestly replies that it was thanks to his own effort, and that her help was only a small part of it. She adds that there's a limit to what one can achieve alone. Her words make Asahi realize that the way she teaches fits him well, making her seem like the ideal person to teach him. But as soon as he thinks this, he feels uneasy. His thoughts tangle as he realizes he didn't mean it that way. Deep down, he knows that when Himuro had collapsed from fever before, something inside him had changed. From that moment, he had only wished for their everyday life to stay the same. That is why those words slipped out without him realizing it. After a brief silence, Himuro agrees to help him study. Though she admits she isn't sure she would be the right tutor for him, she adds that if he truly wants it, she's willing to assist. But only under one condition: that she'll help him with his studies, and in return, he must teach her how to cook. An agreement is formed between them. The cost of ingredients will be divided equally. Asahi will handle the shopping in the morning, while Himuro will take care of the dishes. If either of them won't be eating together, they must inform the other in advance. Their study sessions will be an hour long after the dishes are done. Asahi then asks if he can rely on her until the end of the term. She agrees, saying that she'll also benefit from it. He comments that it will likely be a good experience for him, but isn't so sure about her. She replies that she only needs to learn the basics. He decides to end the discussion for the day. Before leaving, Himuro asks him to wait. She takes out a small box and explains that she wants to thank him for everything he has done. Knowing he would refuse money, she insists that he accept the gift. Seeing her determination, Asahi realizes she won't give up until he takes it. When he finally accepts the box and opens it, he finds a brooch inside, one unlike anything he's seen before. When he mentions the legend behind it, she denies knowing about it and scolds him for being unusually stubborn about accepting her gift. After she leaves, Asahi tells himself to calm down, though his heart remains restless. The next evening, Himuro comes to his house again. She notices the brooch on display and comments that it looks like he decided to use it as decoration. She observes that its colors stand out and that it looks nice where it is. Asahi thinks about how he placed it on top of the shoe rack so it would be noticeable. From her reaction, it seems she has no intention of taking it back. He wonders if it's really fine for him to keep it, feeling it would be a waste to let it just sit there. Himuro responds that it's the same for her and clarifies that she gave it to him without any romantic meaning attached. Asahi acknowledges this and agrees. He then begins their first cooking lesson, announcing that they will be making curry. Himuro looks uncertain, reminding him that he was supposed to teach her how to cook. Asahi explains that he first wants to see what she can do on her own. He recalls seeing her once at the supermarket buying ingredients for curry that at the time. He assumed she already knew how to make it. Or at least, that's what he believed. Soon after, she finishes preparing her dish. Asahi takes a bite and realizes it doesn't taste very good. Himuro admits the same, saying it turned out poorly. He remarks that there's still much for her to learn. She tells him that he doesn't have to eat it and suggests they should order food, or that he could make something instead. She adds that he shouldn't feel obliged to eat it if he doesn't like it. Asahi insists he can't refuse it, knowing how much effort she put into making it, that he explains that in cooking, affection matters more than taste. Although there are things that can be improved, what truly matters is the feeling behind the preparation. The thought reminds him of what his mother once told him when he was young, and he realizes he must have started applying that idea without thinking that he mentions that people often say his food turns out excellent because of it. Himuro quietly reflects on his words, then nods, saying she understands. It's about the feelings behind the food, the care for the people who matter. She promises that one day she'll make something truly worthy of his praise, and Asahi agrees without hesitation. Under their new arrangement, the days pass peacefully, but after several days, something unusual happens. Asahi notices an unfamiliar woman leaving Himuro's house, and the sight leaves him wondering who she might be. As Asahi approaches his house, the woman greets him politely. He returns the greeting, surprised when she asks if he is Kagami Asahi. Wondering how she knows his name, he listens as the woman explains that she heard about him from Miss Fuyuka. She introduces herself as Tachibana Kaori, the housekeeper of the Himuro family, and requests that he look after the young lady. She mentions that despite her seemingly distant and composed nature, Himuro is gentle and easily hurt. Asahi quietly acknowledges her words, realizing she truly is a remarkable woman. Later that evening, when Himuro visits Asahi's home as usual, she explains that the person her father is amazing, not her. She explains that Tachibana was sent to take care of her when she began living alone. Asahi listens, understanding that Tachibana has been part of her life for a long time. Himuro adds that Tachibana had taken some time off due to family matters, which explains her absence. However, her return might take longer than expected, and she had advised Himuro to find someone else to help. Despite this, Himuro decides to wait. When Asahi wonders if she can manage everything alone, Himuro mentions that she had already been handling many tasks herself, and he accepts her explanation, noting that she seems capable, especially now that he is there to assist. Himuro tells Asahi that she wants to rely on him to learn how to cook. Surprised, he agrees to help her, realizing that Tachibana must have mentioned it earlier. Himuro confirms this, explaining that she had indeed told Tachibana, which explains the housekeeper's greeting. Asahi encourages Himuro to work hard so that Tachibana can be proud of her, and Himuro accepts his words with determination. That a week after the sports tournament, Asahi notices visible progress in Himuro. Every dish she washes shines neatly, reflecting her precision and dedication. Her effort is remarkable, though her cooking still needs improvement. Asahi encourages her to take things slowly, knowing that learning takes time. Himuro confidently insists she will become even better than him with practice. Recalling her recent mistakes, like burning food from mishandling the stove, Asahi watches her brush them off playfully, that he realizes how much she has changed. The once calm and distant Himuro now shows expressions he never thought he would see. She acts more openly, even childishly at times, revealing a side of her that Tachibana had described as delicate and easily affected. Asahi understands that this is the real Himuro, hidden beneath her composed exterior. Lost in thought, he doesn't notice her observing him. She points out that he has been smiling more lately, but also seems distracted. When she asks if something is wrong, He assures her that everything is fine. As Himuro prepares to leave, Asahi reminds her that he already has plans for the next day. She recalls that his friends are coming over, and he confirms it that he tells her she will need to cook for herself and to follow the recipe book carefully. He also warns her to handle the knife and stove with caution. She responds politely to each instruction, repeating her agreement until he finally lets her go. After she leaves, Asahi begins thinking about where to hide the brooch so that no one can easily find it, deciding to take care of it before his friends arrive. The following day, Hina and Chiaki come to visit Asahi, bringing a bag with them. Asahi invites them inside and reminds them to keep their voices down to avoid disturbing the neighbors. Hina looks around in amazement, moving from one place to another and admiring everything. Asahi notices her enthusiasm. Chiaki explains that she had always wanted to visit his house. Asahi asks Chiaki to ensure Hina does not get too loud, and Chiaki agrees, assuring him he will keep an eye on her. Asahi notices Chiaki's attention to detail and points it out, but Chiaki simply gives him a look that makes him curious. When Asahi questions it, Chiaki remarks that he seems unusually attentive, suggesting he might be interested in a neighbor. Asahi denies it, saying anyone would be irritated by loud noises. Hina overhears and reacts loudly, asking if Asahi likes someone. Chiaki quickly tells her to lower her voice before disturbing the neighborhood. After some time, Hina complains she is tired of playing. Asahi reminds her there is nothing to do at his house, but she admits she did not expect him to be literal. Chiaki agrees that there is really nothing to do, though Asahi finds his tone a bit blunt. Chiaki then pulls Hina onto his lap, prompting Asahi to tell them not to behave like that in his house. Hina casually replies that the couch is designed for comfort and insists it is fine, adding that it is the first time Asahi has allowed her to visit. Asahi reminds her again to keep her voice down. Hina responds playfully that it does not matter since this will only happen once. Asahi disagrees, clearly displeased. He tells Hina and Chiaki it is time to buy ingredients for dinner. They become excited, calling it the highlight of the evening. He cautions them not to get carried away and asks if they want hamburgers. They respond eagerly, requesting extra cheese, while Hina adds that she can already imagine the taste. Chiaki reminds Asahi to be careful since it is late and the streets are dark. Asahi tells them to get ready, and Hina mentions she also wants dessert. As they are about to leave, Asahi opens the door and is surprised to see Himuro standing outside. All three stop, recognizing her immediately. Chiaki calls out in disbelief, while he quietly wonders why she is there. Hina then asks about Asahi's connection with Himuro. Asahi realizes Himuro must have planned to cook for herself, making it unavoidable for his friends to discover that they live next door. He decides that everything else about their situation should remain hidden. Himuro maintains her usual calm expression, but Hina approaches her curiously, asking about her relationship with Asahi. Himuro looks uncertain, unsure how to respond. Asahi steps in and tells Hina not to disturb her. Hina insists that he answer instead. Thinking for a moment, Asahi explains that they simply live next to each other. Chiaki reacts with excitement, calling it fate and suggesting they must be close friends, or perhaps even something more. Asahi clarifies that they are simply neighbors, nothing more. Hina seems disappointed and turns to Himuro, wanting to ask her opinion, but decides to wait and talk to her later. Asahi quietly thinks that the situation has become troublesome. A short while later, they sit together at the dining table for dinner. Hina mentions that Himuro seems different lately. Chiaki agrees, saying her presence feels softer than before. Hina recalls the sports tournament, remembering how Himuro made the final shot and how she had complimented her. Himuro returned the praise, which surprised Hina, as she thought she saw her smile for the first time. Chiaki also notices something different about Himuro and wonders why. Asahi replies that it probably has nothing to do with him. Hina doubts it, while Chiaki points out that when Asahi said they were only neighbors, Himuro looked a little sad. Hearing this, Asahi silently reflects. He remembers sensing the familiar cold distance from her again, something he hadn't felt in a while. Even so, part of him finds it hard to accept his own words. He begins to question himself, uncertain of what Himuro truly means to him, and wonders what he is to her. The next day, Himuro behaves normally, making Asahi feel foolish for worrying about her the previous day. Yet something is clearly off. The girl who normally makes a small mistake once a day has already made several before noon. Her distracted manner confirms that something is troubling her. That evening, when she visits Asahi's house, he quietly wonders if she is still affected by what happened before. Himuro appears calm but admits she has been unable to find clarity about the question that had been bothering her since last night. When Asahi had referred to her as just a neighbor, she felt an unexpected ache in her heart. Though she had anticipated those words, they still unsettled her, making her question the nature of her bond with him. She has thought about it endlessly, but remains without an answer. Asahi realizes he understands her feelings because he has been dwelling on the same thoughts since yesterday that in his heart. He already sees her as a friend, though he feels awkward admitting it. He apologizes for what he said before, explaining that calling her just a neighbor had simply been the easiest way to avoid further confusion. Himuro reflects quietly. For a long time, she has stayed away from forming friendships, believing solitude to be the most peaceful way to live. Yet, when it comes to Asahi, she feels differently. She wants to consider him a friend, even if she does not fully understand what that means. Curious, she wonders if friendship can be proven in some way, something that shows it truly exists. Asahi thinks about it too, realizing that bonds like these are unseen yet deeply felt. He recalls the time he had been reluctant to address someone by name and how unexpectedly natural it now feels. Himuro softly speaks his name for the first time and asks if they can be friends. Meeting her gaze, Asahi responds with quiet certainty. The next day, Asahi reminds Himuro to focus on cooking, mentioning that he is tired of cleaning up after her mistakes, that he cannot understand why she suddenly brings up such a topic. But their exchange lingers in his mind. There are still moments when they slip back into calling each other by their last names. Each time, the words catch in their throats, their voices slightly unsteady that it feels awkward at first, but gradually, they grow used to addressing one another more familiarly. Bit by bit, the hesitation between them begins to fade. During study time, Himuro explains a problem using a mathematical formula, carefully replacing variables as she demonstrates each step. When she notices Asahi lost in thought, she reminds him to pay attention, emphasizing how close the final exams are. He apologizes and tries to refocus, but his mind keeps wandering. Lately, he has found it difficult to concentrate on studying. Even though using her first name has become normal and sitting beside her feels completely natural, he senses something different. The distance that once existed between them seems to have quietly diminished. Whether it is real or only in his imagination, he cannot tell, but the feeling remains that as Himuro prepares to leave. Asahi tells her he will rely on her help again the next day and apologizes for his distraction. She simply reminds him to be attentive next time. After she leaves, he sits in silence, realizing he has been showing a side of himself that even he does not fully recognize. The next day, while they are studying together, Asahi's mechanical pencil suddenly breaks. Himuro notices and asks if it is the one he always uses. Asahi is frustrated that it broke just before the finals, thinking it is extremely unlucky. Himuro suggests taking a short break, observing that he seems a bit tired, but Asahi insists he can continue. She points out that he has been sighing more than usual, and he wonders if his thoughts have become tangled in something more complicated. Himuro decides to make some coffee and brings it over. Asahi tastes it and finds it delicious. She mentions that he usually drinks it with milk and sugar, and he is surprised by how well she seems to observe his habits. She comments on his skill at brewing coffee, and he clarifies that he meant preparing it, feeling slightly embarrassed. Suddenly, Asahi receives a phone call. He ends it quickly, and Himuro asks if it was from his mother. Asahi brushes it off, saying it was nothing important and checking if she had been paying attention. As he reflects, Asahi recalls that whenever Himuro talks about her family, her expression becomes gloomy. It is difficult for him to bring himself to ask her about it, though he cares. He explains that the call was a reminder to reply to an email. Asahi shows her the message, which reveals that someone has booked a table for Christmas Eve at her parents' restaurant, suggesting she invite the person she likes. Surprised, Himuro realizes the name of the restaurant is Soleil Levant, confirming it is indeed her family's establishment. Himuro reacts with surprise when she realizes the restaurant in question is the one that recently earned 3 Michelin stars. She notes how knowledgeable Asahi seems and comments on how impressive his parents are. Asahi humbly responds, and she decides she will decline the invitation, even though she suspects her parents might scold her. Himuro is astonished at her decision, remarking on how high his blood pressure feels at the news, emphasizing the prestige of the restaurant. Himuro explains that it is difficult for her to attend simply because it is her parents' restaurant. Asahi suggests that since it is Christmas, they could spend the day at home instead, keeping things simple. Himuro then asks if it would be acceptable for her to accompany him. Asahi questions her certainty, considering whether it is really a bad idea and whether she feels inadequate compared to expectations. She reassures him that she need not worry about the invite-a-girl aspect and that she genuinely wants to go. Encouraged, Himuro expresses excitement and asks again if she is certain about joining him.